Many millennia ago, there were men who gazed into the flames of self-awareness and pondered their own existence, and they began to develop faculties of perception and awareness greater than those who lived before. Those men began to conceptualize their place in greater reality, and from their new self-conceptualization sprung the earliest art to symbolize their new understandings. Ancient men began to employ basic logic to fashion tools for survival, setting themselves apart from other orders of animals. In the dawn of their spiritual and mental ascent, ancient men conceived themselves the intermediary between this world and other worldly places. Men began to see and understand how the structure of their own tribal societies mirrored those they saw in the wilds of nature, and like other orders of animals, they saw that it is the male that creates the tribe for human survival, but it is the female who grants mankind self-replication. The patterns early men saw throughout nature and within themselves enhanced the development of their world view, and they began to categorize and organize these concepts. Eventually, they developed a three-layer system of orders, with each layer representing a general part of greater reality. The earliest thinkers believed that these three realms of reality began in the heavens, that mysterious dimension, void of physical matter. The feminine realm is pregnant with every imaginable thing, and is the timeless higher world of eternal archetypes, of every ideal, and the abode of endless potentiality. This realm is characterized as feminine. Its potentiality gives birth to the material world below. But these potential energies cannot be reflected in the material world without a body of matter to contain them. The feminine realm is the home of the gods, which are personifications of intelligent energies or attributes and other spirits. But even the heavens have a masculine, the source of all reality, and gives it form. The feminine realm is symbolized by the color red because it boils hot and undefined. Mankind has no direct interaction within it. The physical world of nature, of specific things, is the realm of the masculine order, the reality of matter, and that which gives temporary material expression to the feminine realm's archetypes. The masculine world is a rational system governed by rules and laws. It is the color of blue because logic and reason are straight, cold, and linear. This realm is ruled by forces which govern all things in this world. It is where energy and matter, spirit and body come together to create the earth and all things in it. The yellow realm, the realm of man-made reality, is the order of cities, government, civilizations, and the material resources used by man in his creations. Even in the yellow realm, all things that men create are derived from the marriage between the higher feminine and masculine order as expressed through the mind of men. The Egyptians believed, as in nature, the feminine energies of archetypes regenerate the forms of the masculine realm, and it is the masculine container of matter that gives physical form to feminine energies, without which those archetype energies, including those found in mankind, cannot exist in nature, nor be perceived with the senses. It was the god known as Thoth who first came to Egypt tens of millennia ago and lifted a primitive people from the swamps of the Nile, teaching them of the heavens and of the creative archetypes and of gods there. Thoth taught the Egyptians writing, music, magic, healing, the calendar, and their patron of science, literature, the creation of languages, and of invention. And from Thoth, they learned the highest hermetic wisdoms and how to personify the heavenly energies through symbolic art to frame the gods in physical form. The Egyptian priest learned the system of the gods and how all things emit from them, and their civilization was structured to reflect the order of reality in the heavens. And they learned of the highest creative source of all realities, and the gods of the upper and lower world, and how they should form a civilization that is a lower reflection of the heavens. And they learned to use materials of the physical world to create forms imbued with the creative forces of higher realms. Without those creative forms, the feminine energies cannot exist in physical reality. For thousands of years, Egyptian influence and their knowledge of the sacred wisdom spread throughout ancient North Africa and the Near East. In time, non-Egyptians were initiated in the secret rituals and trained in the deepest knowledge of the age. Initiated Greeks made their yearly pilgrimages to Egypt, to the temples and priests, to further their understanding of physical reality and realities eternal and unseen. Some of those initiated Greeks were thinkers of high reason and logical capacity and are still known today. Thinkers like Aristotle, Pythagoras, Socrates, and Plato remain famous names connected to the birth and development of today's Western system of knowledge. Thinkers like these took what they learned from Egypt back to the city-states of Greece and began to recharge their old civilization. The Greeks realized that the feminine source of their acquired wisdom had given them a way to decode nature, and the sacred knowledge became infused with Greek thought. So that they can understand the knowledge in their own way, the Greeks applied a brand of reasoning and logic to the grand collective views they had learned in Egypt, and they began to reform and categorize the structure of the ancient knowledge. The Greeks replaced the arcane feminine reality of the Egyptians and reorganized the sacred order by applying a purified level of logic and reason. They dissected the bulk of the Egyptian teachings into areas and subcategories. They masculinized the framework of the sacred teachings and created the masculine blue order, the first blueprint of physical reality and man's path to heaven on earth. The development of blue masculine logic was reflected in the transition of their art. Heavily influenced by Mother Egypt, early Greek choral sculpture was stiff and rigid, with the ubiquitous feminine style of general form, where all of creation, people, their emotions, and their thoughts were equal. But in time, Greek sculpture began to depict direct physical reality, not its generalities. By the 4th century BC, Greek reason had extracted the ideals of individual action and emotional expression from the limited and backwards-facing ideals of the Egyptians. By the 5th century, man had become the measure of all things, and his forward thinking would allow mankind to ascend to a higher state, even to the level of the eternal gods. The masculine blue Greeks believed that logic and reason would assist man in his evolution and light the way to his true nature. The symbol of this new Greek vision was the owl. The course of world history changed in 336 BC when Philip, king of Macedonia, was assassinated and Alexander, his 20-year-old son, claimed the Macedonian throne. Today he is known as Alexander the Great, but his true greatness was not in what he did, but also in what he symbolized. This young warrior king of Macedonia was the first blue son of the Greek masculine order and the revolutionary king who ignited Western civilization. King Alexander desired to force the entire feminine world into the divine rational structure. His devout belief in the destiny of the Blue Order would drive the 24-year-old to conquer the world. The student of Aristotle was schooled in the sacred wisdoms and came to understand the aggressive path the order must take to frame the feminine energies of the world. Through force, Alexander's masculine ideals of individual liberty, aggressive self-agency, and personal will were represented in the Greek development of sports, competitions, and the first Olympic Games. All except slaves of the yellow material order could win glory and sacrifice their own lives for honor. Although he was very young, Alexander set out to give masculine form to the red civilizations of the world, to liberate them from ignorance and barbarity. He believed it was his destiny to drag all of mankind to a higher plane of physical existence and start an earthly reality that mirrors the harmonious corporate structure of the heavens. Since mankind's rise from the sea, they had crawled on the earth beneath the gods, begging for worthiness like unworthy slaves, lowly pets to their chaotic whims and moods. But Alexander personally took on the great struggle of strength and courage to force the irrational peoples into the blue world order, one in which a physical man might pierce the heavens and ascend to the level of the gods. Alexander would hammer the new reality into existence by the power of his will, and in this visionary dream to civilize the feminine, he desired to become the earthly incarnation of Hercules. Then his name and heroic accomplishments would not perish from the earth, but live forever. But Alexander, first blue son of the masculine order, died, never seeing his homeland again. But even now, thousands of years after his death, his blue legacy set the path for all future sons of the blue order who desire to frame the world. For thousands of years, the secrets of the sacred order had been hidden from all but the initiated priests of Egypt, while the sacred symbols of the order were on display in the public art of the day and built into the splendid temple architecture of their cities. The key to understanding the knowledge was strictly guarded from most outsiders and from Egyptians of lesser status. But in due time, a knowledge transfer occurred between Egyptians and Greeks. Greeks were accepted for initiation into the mysteries of the sacred order, and the teachings began to migrate from Egypt and into Greece. The Greeks masculinized the framework of the sacred wisdom and created the revolutionary masculine blue order, the first blueprint of physical reality and mankind's connection to the heavens. But in 200 BC, after hundreds of years of being schooled by the Greeks in the temples of Greek gods, the Roman Republic rose and conquered Greece and grafted the structure of the Blue Order into its own vision of empire. And like the Greek myth of Oedipus, the son killed his father, and this extremely masculine son eventually grew into Europe's first continental superpower. Administered by the Romans, the new blue order of the world was extremely hard and rigid. Feminine barbarians must be broken enough to never attempt revolt, submit or be destroyed, or be reduced to yellow material resource. Unlike the Greeks, who applied deep blue logic to their search for universal beauty, Rome worshipped the concept of earthly glory, where honor was the path of ascension into the heavens. Conquest of the feminine races and Romanizing the world would be Rome's creative masterpiece. And as the glory of the Roman Republic forced the submission of the Mediterranean world, Rome smashed many enemies under his sandaled feet and into the yellow dust of slavery. The blue Roman Republic became corrupt and weak with age. Rome's blue had faded, but managed to hold its masculine frame for 500 years. The ideals of liberty were still served by its patrician senate and 2 elected consuls. Then in 46 BC, the conqueror of Gaul made his push for glory and unleashed the feminine energies from under the tired and old blue structure. His actions caused the red river of Roman blood to flow. The Republic, the second son of the Blue Order, came to an end after Julius Caesar, the man who had made himself emperor and dictator of Rome, created history's first purple order. Under Caesar, red and blue were blended together as one head of state. He was still a blue Roman, but the smothering of blue Republic liberty was a cast of red onto Rome's weakening blue frame. And because masculinity has the universal need to union with the feminine energies of creativity for rejuvenation, Caesar's creative reforms energized Rome and the people. After Caesar's death by assassination at the hands of Republican senators, Rome was plunged into a bloody civil war as Romans, aligned with the Blue Order Republicans, fought those loyal to Caesar's imperial order, the Purple Caesarians. At the Battle of Philippi, the Republican Blue Order, the last true masculine form of liberty in the ancient world, ceased to exist. For another 500 years, the Imperial Purple Order of Rome dominated Europe, Mediterranean Sea, and North Africa. Blue technology and masculine aggression had merged into a powerful blend stirred up by red feminine passion. Imperial Rome would demand that the barbarian world accept the lesser color of subordinate green without the benefits of incorporation. Otherwise, they would be forced to accept the yellow color of material resource and slave to their purple masters. During the rule of the late Roman emperors, the old masculine gods were dying, and the masculine charge in Rome's purple worldview began to fade and thin. In the 1st century AD, a growing sect, the Christians, said the Son of God had arrived and died to save mankind from its sinful nature. The purple emperors recognized the challenge of the new order and tried to crush it with fire and the sword. Rome made bloody sport of the Christian zealots, making them food for animals and burning their bodies as night lights. But the new Christian order, with no encoded temples, no symbolic art, and no living emperor to worship, accepted death as God's will and worshipped a hero who died on a bloody cross of crucifixion without a fight. But in time, the old and withered order recognized the opportunity to be rejuvenated by a union with the feminine. Rome's purple spirit needed the feminine energy of rejuvenation or stagnate and winter due to imbalance and starvation of new ideas. And for Rome, the reviving energy came in the symbol of a Christian cross. The Christian order possessed a similar hierarchy, fearless individuality, and the self-agency of the blue order, but also red irrationality and freshness of deep passion to revive the red and the blue within Rome's purple system. And likewise, both systems desired reality on earth to be as it is in heaven. In 13 AD, the purple Roman Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which merged the maroon Christian order to Rome's starved purple order, soon making Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. Rome's purple order gained strength with the freshness of the Christian system, underwent a major creative transition. In 330 CE, Constantine moved the Roman capital from Italy to the east to Constantinople, and it soon became the most powerful city in the world. And while the purple color of Rome faded to a dull magenta, the Rome of the East had been greatly renewed to deep royal purple. By the 300s AD, feminine barbarians encroached beyond Rome's western border, and in 476 AD, Western Rome received its death blow. The Eternal City was reclaimed by a red inferno of Germanic tribes. The Republic of the Blue Order, and later the Imperial Purple Order of Rome, once controlled a 2.2 million square mile empire with over 60 million people. They ruled the Mediterranean Sea for 1,000 years. But even before the fall of Western Rome, a new power rose just beyond Purple Rome's eastern border. A new race of people had gained possession of the sacred order, and with it formed their own green structure of reality. The green caliphates of Islam grew into a great and powerful empire. The Muslim order blended a different set of eternal colors. The masculine logic of blue was combined with their yellow material worldview, that all things below Allah, including mankind, were but mere material resource and should be used to serve the green order. The last classical civilization of ancient Europe ended when West Rome fell into the ashes of history and into a period known as the Dark Ages, with no hue of blue existing, and life was short and poor. There was only the irrationality of the red default state of constant war, corruption, and chaos. Then came the Black Death of plague and killed almost half of Europe's population, leaving only Eastern Rome, renamed the Byzantine Empire, to carry the masculine blue of royal purple until they too were conquered by Ottoman Turks of Islamic green in 1453. The caliphates of Islam had become sole masters of corporate blue logic, and with the sacred knowledge they had acquired after conquering Egypt, they spread Islam to the Far East into India and across North Africa. Masculine Islamic green overtook the Iberian Peninsula from the Christians and ruled part of feminine Europe for 700 years. The green caliphates advanced the wisdom of blue logic, especially in the area of mathematics, and created a splendid style of architecture. Long ago, the Christians had taken Jerusalem from Islam, but the tables had turned. The once red civilization had grown powerful under the green caliphates, and they had their designs to place all of Europe and the world under the green corporate order of Islam. Europe would submit or be made yellow resource, as they themselves had done to others. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, the purple European kings, with the urgings and blessings from popes in Rome, went on their great crusades and recaptured Jerusalem from the green of Islam. It was in Jerusalem, at the Temple of Solomon, that the Templar Knights were born. The Order of Knights became a favorite charity throughout Christendom, receiving money, land, and noble-born sons from families eager to capture the entire Holy Land. They invented the early form of banking and could be considered the world's first multinational corporation. But in 1307, King Philip IV of France had all Templar Knights arrested and tortured to death. The remaining Templars went underground and re-established themselves in the British Isles as stonemason guilds. They were wealthy and steeped in the sacred knowledge acquired while fighting for Jerusalem, and they vowed to wage holy war against the magenta of the Catholic Church and all purple kings. Their other great vow, to free or subjugate the feminine and illogical heathen with a divine rational structure. In 1492, the Catholic warrior kings of Europe finally reconquered the Iberian Peninsula from Moorish Islam. When the Christians examined their spoils, they learned that they had rediscovered the sacred wisdoms and teachings from the ancient past, which had been long lost and forgotten to Europe since the fall of Rome. As a result of these rediscoveries, there came a period of renaissance in mathematics, art, literature, logic, creative thought, and of higher sacred knowledge about the formation of nature and of invisible reality. But it was in 1517 that Martin Luther sparked the Protestant Reformation, one of the decisive events in history that formed the world we live in. In opposition to indulgencies of the Catholic Church, his 95 Theses promoted the supremacy of individualism and personal faith to interpret the Bible themselves rather than institutional imposition. The development of the printing press was one of its many direct results. The evolving acceptance of masculine individualism paralleled changes in other European cultural, social, and political practices and attitudes. And with this injection of blue masculinity came the expansive and outward projection of European colonialism. Europe began to explore the greater feminine world to renew the Blue Order, started long ago by Alexander the Great. Another pivotal event in European history happened in 1534 when King Henry VIII grew frustrated by the Catholic Church forbidding his marriage to be annulled. He broke with the Church in Rome and had the English Parliament declare him supreme head of the Church of England, starting the English Reformation. This resulted in a series of civil wars between the blue parliamentarians and purple royalists. A parliamentary victory at the conclusion of the war ended the notion of the divine red right of kings. The aristocracy and gentry had their rights protected from absolutism, laying the groundwork for the modern United Kingdom parliament and monarch. England, once a red and barbaric frontier of blue Rome, was reborn as the first blue sun of Europe since the Roman Republic. In 1717, the Reformed Templars, now the Freemasons, formed the first Blue Lodge of Freemasonry, allowing the expansion of membership. The greatest and most powerful of accrued Masonic knowledge, that, as in nature, the laws of the Blue Order of reality requires the creation of a global civilization with a divine structure that mirrors and reflects heaven. This new societal structure releases individual liberty from its collective feminine origin, and based on a man's own will, drive, and vision, he might ascend to his highest achievable goals. The blue ideas of liberty, initiated by the renaissance of classical knowledge of reason and logic, Protestant individuality, and the corporate and monetary structures of Masonic influence, were the catalysts that ignited the American and French Revolution. These twin sons of reason, in their red, white, and blue, proclaim this sacred trinity as the marriage of red and blue, required for the world to reflect heaven and align with the laws governing nature. This timeline sets the European and global stage for the most powerful blue nation the world has ever seen, the United States of America. England, the first modern blue nation, did what masculine blue-ordered societies must do: project their own interpretation of the sacred corporate structure out onto the world with nautical and weapons technologies and organizations few irrational people can imagine and struggle to produce in bulk. With their symbolic purple head of state, the royal crown, as their cultural iconography, the modest-sized island of Great Britain created a world-spanning empire. In 1776, the British colonies in North America started the purest masculine revolution in the long history of the Blue Order. Embodied in the American Declaration of Independence was the novel conception that logical and irrational masculinity should be structurally and legally married with the red feminine energies and passions that are found within every group. The Americans conceived that blue and red should not attempt to conquer each other or blend together, but coexist as distinct political parties in a unique experiment the Freemasons believed mirrored the corporate structure of heaven. The Orange Protestant Christians relished the new liberties and sanctioned the union of the colonies. Motivated by the old Masonic vow of revenge against the Purple Kings and emboldened by the Protestant stance of individual liberty, the Americans chose to never have a king, but to remain true even to the ancient mythologies of the blue and red systems. And because the mysteries of ancient Egypt, the mother civilization of Western blue, are the very origins of incorporated blue logic, and also represent the first and highest developed of feminine civilizations. The Americans created a form and function of government based on the Hermetic doctrine, considered the origins of science, religion, mathematics, geometry, alchemy, philosophy, medicine, and magic. Their belief in the mysteries of the Egyptian god Osiris and his sister Isis are on display in the symbolic layout and design of the Washington Mall. The centerpiece of the mall is the Washington Monument, the largest obelisk ever created. It stands as representation of the phallic of Osiris, the god that grants life from the underworld. When Osiris was murdered by his brother Set, his body was dismembered and cast about Egypt. Isis found the body parts of Osiris and reconstructed him, missing only his sexual organ. She fashioned a new phallic for the body of Osiris and mounted it to conceive a child, Horus, the first pharaoh of Egypt. The Washington Monument, as phallic of Osiris, symbolizes the union of heaven and earth and the energies of metaphysical reality penetrating the physical world. As above in the higher worlds, so below in the lower earth. It represents the sexual union between the masculine god Osiris and Isis, the goddess of the feminine. The mall's reflection pool is symbolic of the female sexual organ, with the reflection of the towering obelisk giving the impression of masculinity penetrating femininity. The rings at the base of the obelisk symbolize the vaginal openings of Isis. Not far from the Washington Monument is the symbolic womb of Isis herself, the White House, with its Oval Office, from which is born Horus, the first child of the divine union. A Freemason and the first president of the United States, George Washington was the reincarnation of Horus and the manifestation of divine providence. At the west wing of the mall, the position of presidency, represented by another reincarnation of Horus, stands a monument to Abraham Lincoln. A monument to Abraham Lincoln serves as the symbolic rational conscience as head of the Republic, while to the east, the Capitol building stands as the emotional and creative mind, the system's feminine counterpart. As collective representative of the American people, those serving in the Capitol building also stand in as the mood and emotions of the mob, the people. When a president signs a bill into law or uses the power of the veto, he is serving, as in the human mind, as the higher rational mind, setting limits on the expression of emotions and impulse. The American order was a novel concept that the purest ideals of objective masculinity must strike a structural balance with the subjective passions of the feminine energies. This duality of reality exists within the human society, yet it was the modern American flag that symbolized the codification of the marriage of blue and red. In the American flag, the blue rectangle, spangled with the stars of each state, represent the objective and rigid framework of blue masculine law, while the red and white stripes depicts the cycle of election, the feminine mood of the people and their representatives. The stripes are also symbolic of regeneration of the masculine from the feminine, and the feminine is given form by the masculine. The white bands between the red stands for the harmony between the cycles, when the blue and red are one body and spirit, from many to one. For 200 years, the party of the left, today's Democratic Party, used red to symbolize the feminine aspects of the American Republic, while blue was used to symbolize the masculine. But during the presidential election of 1979, in a flight of whimsy, a major news network switched the party colors because, as they said, for technical issues, posting election results. The switch in party colors remained today. The voters, loyal to either party, cast their ballots based on two principles, those of the subjective and liberal left, or the objectivity of the conservative right, despite the actuality that the human brain has an inversion of the senses, and the right brain is represented in the left half of the body, and the left brain objectively controls the right. In 1854, the Republican Party was founded. Its platform was based on the purification of the Blue Order and the Protestant principles of individual liberty for all. They were opposed to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed for the expansion of chattel slavery into the Western territories. The ideals of the party were embodied in its first elected president, Abraham Lincoln, 16th president of the United States. The industrial states of the North had already officially legislated slavery into history, turning those states a deeper blue. But the feminine states of the South, yelling and posturing with the red passions of rebellion, became true antagonists to the masculine course of law. Lincoln was not concerned with slavery as he was with the ideals of creating a more perfect blue structure to control the reddest elements within the Union. To Lincoln, the existence of slavery posed an existential threat to the American experiment and to the blue ideal of individual liberty. To this blue president, there were no slaves in heaven or in nature. Thus, slavery cannot exist in American society. Concerning the black slaves, the Blue Order required that they be free and incorporated into the system. But Lincoln believed the Negro too developmentally inferior to fully understand how to ascend within the blue structure. He thought they may serve best in the lower green level of the American corporation. position, measurably higher than the unincorporated slave position subscribed by the southern slave states, where they were the color of yellow material and resource. Civil wars are always a bloody affair for societies that fight them, and America's was no different. But for Lincoln, the idea of a future perfect union of red and white and blue depended on the control of the irrational element while allowing it freedom of expression. In the blue ideas of Lincoln, every legal person within the blue structure of the corporation must be able to ascend to the highest level possible based on work and merit. Lincoln understood that in America, the purest form of structural blue that has ever been developed from knowledge of the ancient mysteries would one day perish from Earth if the feminine energies break form and are allowed to burn deep red. At the start of the 20th century, the family of blue nations controlled most of the world. For hundreds of years, they had maintained their masculine form strong enough to eventually gain solid subjugation over the barbarians governed by illogical feminine energies. As the Industrial Revolution rolled full steam ahead, the economic growth and vast technological advancements gave the West ownership of world affairs. New industries in energy, transportation, and infrastructure changed life for millions of people worldwide. More people moved to cities, bringing laborers to work in the factories. For the powers within the Blue Order, the long-held dream of creating a Blue World Order seemed within reach. But in 1914, an internal matter rose to the forefront and had to be settled or risk becoming the complete pulling apart of Western civilization. Unlike the rest of Western Europe and Britain, the tribes of Germania were never completely conquered by Rome. And in this, they developed a very different and separate culture from those of the Latin-speaking nations. In 1914, Germany, a purple kingdom, ruled by Emperor and King of Prussia, Frederick Wilhelm II, had grown powerful during the Industrial Revolution and gave the guarantee of military support to Austria-Hungary. Germany boasted, growing more eager to separate its Purple Order from the influence of the Blue Order. When a member of the Serbian Black Hand Military Society assassinated the Austro-Hungarian heir, Archduke Fritz Ferdinand, his death was a spark that ignited Germany's Great Purple Rebellion, commonly known as the First World War. During this deadly conflict, the Central Red powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire fought against the Blue Allied powers of Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Japan, and the United States. The masculine Blue Order was forced to try and subjugate the feminine energies, warring to be unleashed, and it resulted in the deaths of 20 million people. Entire generations of young European men died. After Germany signed the problematic Treaty of Versailles, the League of Nations was formed to consolidate the alliance between the Blue Order of Nations. But the prideful Germans, still suffering from the hardship caused by the war, still held its blue ideas of masculine projection and its purple dreams of empire. In 1848, Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, and for the first time in history, the chaotic energies of the feminine and red civilizations were codified into a social theory as aggressive as the masculine and the blue. But it wasn't until 1914, during Germany's Great Rebellion, that the pendulum of history began to swing left, caused by the hot hammer of Marxist words. And then there was revolution. In Russia, communists proclaimed that here was no domain of the gods, but that the collective people would themselves create the heavenly realm where no man would become demigod, but might rise to the level of a hero. Armed with the tribal principle of collectivism and colored in the primal red of feminine passion, communism surged rapidly around the globe. Today, China has become very powerful, takes up the bolstering common to all red rhetoric. She is the second great daughter of the feminine order and will make her attempt to paint the world red and color all people yellow, the color of material resource. In the early 1930s, 2 decades after the disaster Germany's Purple Rebellion, a fresh generation of Germans had grown up armed by the bitter history of defeat. And in 1939, Germany, under the black and red Nazi order, would again push for dominance over Europe in an attempt to create a 1,000-year black and red Reich. Adolf Hitler believed himself the heir to Alexander's destiny of molding the entire world under one order. With Italy and Japan on accord, the black of Germany's codification reflected no primary colors, only the blackest of deep masculine logic. Like the communists, the Nazis were a red civilization when compared to the liberated blue of Western Europe. But Germany, a once proud cousin to the blue family of nations, still had a logical and rational blue strand running through its history, while Russia smoldered deep red. Germany's black masculine logic, like being pulled by strong magnetism, felt compelled to conquer the communist red and her vast lands. But Joseph Stalin's relentless Red Army brought Nazi assertions to a bitter frozen end in Stalingrad, and a new course was set for Western civilization. In the Eastern War, the United States, the premier blue nation, made world-changing history with the development and use of the atomic weapons, and, if so desired, could have and eventually would have made its own world-conquering push. Communist Russia soon developed nuclear weapons, and now both alpha colors, red and blue, have destruction of and protection from each other. And although the masculine mind of a civilization is often long-lived, it dies eventually because it is not the default state of a people. It is the feminine reservoir of humanity that is mankind's default. There will never again be an opportunity for world liberty. Alexander's vision of a blue reality is finally over. Like two competing corporations with their brand partners, sponsorships, and franchises, the red and blue orders of nations is the current state of global affairs. Almost all strongmen, oligarchs, prime ministers, and presidents belong to one order or another. The red order ideals of hero of the state, the ascent of the collective, and the removal of all traditional values in exchange for perpetual revolution has by default the vast reservoir of humanity to renew its expansion. This reservoir of people is used to break the masculine frame that the blue order nations have in areas of global competition. But when the people are treated as yellow material, they lose their passion for the red systems. Force is often used to hold a desired form on the people. The blue ideals of heaven, honor, and beauty are used for the ascension of the individual and are necessary charters to manage the global feminine energies as well as those within the blue order. The blue order's corporate structure fuels the progress of industry and the development of new products and technologies. But even in the blue order, there are those who desire perpetual revolution and those who suffer from the indulgencies of choice. Less powerful countries that partner with or franchise into the red order or the blue order takes the color of their level of entry, where they will represent the level of their order at their positions. Each order has its leadership set of colors, but nations under their sponsorship or franchise must incorporate the color of their order level, and the colors of their flag must reflect their type or style of government. The common people often see their representative flag as a mere symbol of the country, but to those who know how to read and interpret the colors of the global system, a national flag signals a nation's position in the grand order at a certain time in history. To those who know the true structure of this universal binary, they encode blue order design into everything created in the man-made yellow realm. As it represented to the Greeks long ago, the owl, Athene Noctua, still looks out of the fractal pattern of the American dollar bill. The encoded binary gives structure to the classical arts and the music that moves our emotions and thoughts. The marriage of feminine and masculine is at the very foundation of the Latin languages, mathematics, the understanding of religions, and the discoveries of science. The marriage of energy and matter, of feminine essence and its masculine form, is part of everything we perceive and everything made by humankind. This universal order is the form and function of corporations, the legal person, as they mirror the heavens, and it is the structural blueprint of Western society. But beyond things created by men, the marriage of feminine and masculine holds the solar system together, as gravity from the masculine sun contains and gives form to the rotation of the planets. And it is represented in the colony of ants, with its hidden feminine queen regenerating the nest, while her female children serve the role of the masculine so that she may exist. The binary holds atoms and cells together and forms the relationship between our emotions and thoughts. Why do so few know of its existence? What reason is there to keep it hidden from humanity? Can all of humanity benefit from exploring its endless depths? Maybe we will learn that, like the red and the blue orders of reality, we cannot exist alone. We are in this together.